Hello, School Transportation Nation. We are here back from Frisco, Texas. We worked hard. It was an outstanding conference of exciting content, meaningful conversations, a great trade show with fun. You know, we got everything out of it we wanted, right, Ryan?
I think so. I mean, I came back with a little bit of a cold or allergy, so I got that definitely. But you know, the buzz around the entire conference was so positive. It felt that so many people got so many good things out of the entire experience, from the trade show, the tailgate party, of course, all the hands-on that we had, the child passenger safety on school buses, the NHTSA 8-hour was like standing room only. We had, you know, folks in every general session. The breakouts were well attended, just repeatedly kept hearing really good things. And my litmus test is always when you talk to someone who's been in the industry for 20, 30 years and they're telling you, I learned so much. That's what really resonates with me.
That's great. How about you, Taylor? Senior Editor Taylor, you're there covering the sessions. You're in the mix. You're interviewing people. You were everywhere.
Yeah, I came back with 22 pages of notes, so I still have to digest all that.
That's a lot.
Well, I mean, there's always something to learn. I mean, every single session, you can write something down and take something out of it. You know, even after the keynotes, I would talk to people and be like, you know, what are you taking home from this? And they're like, oh my gosh. And they go to their notes, right? So my 22 pages is probably nothing compared to these transportation professionals, but truly an amazing conference. You know, like Ryan said, a lot of positive with the hands-on. I got to spend the day at the evacuation training, and that's always a fan favorite. I got to shoot a fire hydrant, not a fire hydrant, what's it called?
Fire extinguisher.
Yes, I got to shoot a fire extinguisher. So I know the attendees were excited about that as well. But just little things that you never thought about doing, you get these hands-on opportunity to do at the conference. So that was really fun, really positive, you know, it's a great conference all around.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun bringing all these stakeholders together. I personally thought it was the best year we've ever had, the best content, the best speakers. I had so many people commenting how surprised they were, the first time attendees, on the quality of the content and the speakers. And I love hearing that. I know the editorial team, Brian specifically, has got our tenured faculty who have been very committed to the success of this show and the quality of the content. And, you know, it really shined through. People were just glowing about their experience this year. And it's great to get that affirmation and that back. Ryan, big problem. You got to outdo yourself next year, man.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking as I was flying home. That's the challenge. But it's a good one. And, you know, I was having dinner with several speakers the last night of the conference, last full night. And one of them, tenured faculty member Sue Trump, she turned to me and said, Rye, excellent agenda. This every session, you know, was just, you know, on point, and you know, and she plays a big role in that, as well as Alex Robinson, the newly inducted NAPT Hall of Famer. So again, you know, Alex, that happened a couple of weeks ago, so we've done an article on her. Congratulations, as well as Lonnie Hardin, our good friend. Actually, I went to dinner with Lonnie and Sue and some others, Kayla Hankins-Siefkin and Josie Campbell and Denny Coughlin. You know, Alex had already headed home. A lot of folks are at NASDIPs, so back east. And with that whole thing going on, I think, Tony, that the government is not shut down maybe by the time people are hearing this. I don't know, but this past month has just been a whirlwind, I think, for the entire industry because of NAPT, then TSD, and then NASDIPs. And but you know, a lot of the folks that were with us out there in Frisco only attended one thing, and sometimes they only attend one thing all year. And if it was TSD, you know, they got, like you mentioned, they got a power-packed punch worth of great takeaways.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without our sponsors and our partners. We had a sold out trade show. We happened to expand the trade show for people with the networking opportunities. So, we're trying to bring those solutions to everybody as well. So, just want to remind our audience that this podcast is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, by Ride, real innovation delivered with excellence, and by School Radio, your source for reliable radio communications. As we kind of continue our conversation about the TSD conference this week, make sure and go to the stnonline.com website. The team has turned out a mountain of content. Our social channels have videos, one-on-one interviews. There's a lot of little nuggets from all over the conference. So if you missed it, you can feel like you were there with everything that we did. And it really, I think the team did a bang-up job sharing so much good content. We do better and better every year, Ryan.
That's the goal. And, constantly looking at things and tweaking things. And, we have Charlotte, STN Expo East coming up before we know it. So certainly continue to really fine tune things so we can get more and more of the voice of the industry and the voice of the conference out to all the masses so they can get caught up and get a flavor of what's going on.
Perfect. Before we dive into a little more content, got a quick message. Hey, safety is a number one priority for everyone in school transportation, and even more so when needing to communicate in a school bus setting. School radios, push to talk over cellular or POC radios, are the safety enhancement you need to provide clear communication across all aspects of your fleet. Schools, SROs, that's school resource officers, and beyond. School radio helps take safety and connectivity a step further by offering interoperability solutions that bridge conventional two-way radios with POC systems, creating a unified network that boosts effectiveness and safety. This integrated strategy guarantees smooth communication in both emergency situations and daily activities. To learn more about how school radio can improve safety in your communication methods, visit school-radio.com. That's school-radio.com. All right, we're back. Okay, Taylor, there was a lot of sessions to have like as your favorite. So I won't put that on you. Maybe like what were the ones that really stood out? Maybe your top three. I know there's so much. Obviously, the hands-on training with the fire extinguisher, that's like really fun. Like you got in there if you've never shot a fire extinguisher before, kind of as part of our evacuation hands-on training, right? That's what Taylor's talking about. You want to give the audience a little more vivid explanation of what that experience was?
Yeah. And I appreciate you not putting me on the spot and making me pick one because I almost had a heart attack. I was not ready for that. You got to prep me for these conversations. But okay, so the evacuation is a full day. We went out to Prosper ISD, Terry, the director there, absolutely amazing. The instructors, Lonnie, Denny, that, Ryan mentioned earlier, and Kayla, Aaron is there.
Frank Gaisley from TransFinder. He's a fire chief. It was Frank, Denny, Lonnie, Aaron, and Kayla.
Yes. And Kenny Moldler was out there too, helping out. Yeah.
Well, Kenny Moldler helped put some strap in some of the dolls to help Denny out because Denny's usually going in there. He's operating the smoke machine. Frank Gaisley, who I mentioned, he's a fire chief, volunteer fire chief up in New York State. So he was there. So they were running the smoke machine, and I think Frank really mans the fire extinguisher station. But Kenny was there to as an added pair of hands because Denny is often running back and forth and trying to reinstall the dolls in the car seats and then talk to the people. Kenny was there. So it was a bang up effort, I think, from the entire team to really make that thing go smooth. And that's another thing we're always learning year in, year out of how can we fine tune things, make things even more smooth and the transitions free.
Mm-hmm. And I did not envy Kenny because I felt so bad for him. He would take those dolls, go in, and then you hear him like coughing inside, and he comes out and he's out of breath.
There was a funny story though, wasn't there, from the smoke? So what I heard was they were trying to air out all the smoke from the bus, and they had opened up the vents, and
Yes,
and then
and
Lonnie was like, try opening up the windows, and it wasn't. The smoke was just still like inside the cabin. They're like, what's going on? And then I think Frank said, should I turn off the smoke machine?
yeah.
So that
And
was
of course,
funny.
everyone's laughing, right? And poor Kenny's still in there trying to figure out why, the smoke isn't getting out. But yeah, truly, they're a great group, great training, spending all day it's a lot, but the way they break it up, the way, they do these, they start with a classroom, do some conversations, take some notes, have some open, really great discussions. And then after lunch, it breaks into these 4 groups and they talk about, wheelchair, the lift. So, I saw Aaron being dragged on a drag blanket, right? Really getting that experience where if you were in an evacuation, this is the things that you are going to have to do. And so, talking about that, I know a lot of people were kind of talking about it from that special needs perspective because a lot of people don't do evacuations training with special needs students. And so what that would look like was a lot of the conversation as well. But truly a great day. Everyone leaves feeling refreshed, rejuvenated. They want to do something like that at their school district. Denny's funny. He's like, hey, if you want to do this, we got this smoke machine on Amazon. So if you want one, Amazon. But yeah, it's just a truly great day.
Yeah, I always appreciate, how much energy the speakers take in developing stuff that's really meaningful for the attendees. They really take their time to carve out their specialty and have just a strong conversation. I think, always a fan favorite is Betsy Helfrich, who's our legal eagle. And I was sitting in her breakout session, which was talking about actual video review. And that can be, thought of in a lot of different ways. I guess when I think of video review, I always think of it as video cameras in the bus, but she had a lot of other perspectives because it was like video on people's phones, video can take on a lot of different perspectives. One thing that knocked me back was she was talking about a special needs bus, and there was a sexual misconduct of one student on another student, and apparently it was graphic. And what she described was, is there an incident like that? What do you do? Right? What do you do in terms of finding the appropriate measure? Do you take the video and then send it to your principal or send it to other stakeholders? And basically said, hold on, pause. You don't want to do that because that could be considered potentially distribution of child pornography. And I thought, wow, I didn't really think of it that way in that sense. I thought it was okay, there needed to be some corrective behavior or you need to share it with other people in the organization and make sure this is addressed. But no, this should go to the police. There should be a certain guidelines in which you don't just send video of illicit things happening with these children. And obviously this is a special needs situation on top of it. So there's probably a lot of protections for these kids that exist, blurring the faces, the behavior. And she also talked a lot about certain video being released to the media. So the media would contact a transportation department and say, I would like this video. And it's well, what do? You don't just release the video. She said, look, there's a certain amount of time that you have. You don't have to just give it to them. It depends on the circumstance of the video, the students that are involved in the video, making sure you blur the faces of the other students in the video. So there's a lot of meat on the bone there. I could go on and on, but she really provided great insights on how to deal with technology specific to student privacy and not getting yourself or your district in trouble.
Yeah, that was a big one when we were putting together this agenda, and I actually shared with her. There was a lawsuit brought in a state, which I won't name, but that I was made aware of, where there was a sexual assault that happened, and I believe it was the parent maybe of the accused who because a lot of times these parents can see this video, and there's a whole element to that under FERPA, but then this parent tried to bring a lawsuit on that point of child pornography. that, accusing the transportation department or a specific transportation personnel of engaging in that. And so there's, a whole litany of things that Betsy went over, like you said, and who in the transportation department watches it? Does anyone watch it? And a lot of folks nowadays, if they even get a whiff that it's something of a sexual assault or of that nature, transportation is like, shut down, contact the police. That's their best course of action. You don't want to go any further. You turn it over to authorities and let them start their investigation.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So she described in her keynote what she talks about legal cases that are happening. And she's like, look, you can't make some of this stuff up. This is just what's happening out there, where a driver didn't like what a student was wearing. There was a hat a student had. She gave an example that I think it was in Minnesota, there was a shooting and they had a day where it was like, wear your favorite hat day. And the student wore a hat that had a gun on it and it said, try to take them. Right. And the student said, hey, I'll take off my hat. No problem. I'll put it away. They called the parent. They let them know. But the parent had an issue with them violating the student's freedom of speech. But the court ended up siding with the school that it was insensitive and regarding also the disruption. So she made it real clear that if it was a small thing, that it was just like a kind of an offshoot, it was just kind of a one-to-one thing, you couldn't force the student to do it. But because it was causing a large disruption among the student population, that was considered an issue. And the court sided with the school as a result. Obviously, with the neighboring town as well having a shooting, that was a sensitive topic. But she also talked about maybe a student that was wearing a political statement on their shirt, and the bus driver says, you can't get on my bus because you're wearing this shirt. And so I'm sure that stuff happens a lot. And there are different cases that come up, and it's how do you navigate the nuance of that? And again, you can go on and on about this stuff, but it's like, wow, like you're dealing as in transportation, you're trying to get them there safe, but there's all these other little nuanced things that you're having to deal with in the process that no one really thinks about.
When Betsy was telling me that, I didn't mention it to her, but after the fact, I thought, so many school districts and schools have dress code policies. I know my children's does, and it's pretty specific on what's allowed and what's not allowed. And does transportation know that? Are they privy to that? Are they looking at what the dress code is? How does that impact transportation? What is the school bus driver allowed or not allowed to do in terms of trying to, if they see a shirt or a certain dress or whatever, are they allowed to say something or not? It opens up a can of worms.
What are your thoughts, Taylor?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think, our legal experts are always a fan favorite because you're getting this one-on-one with a legal expert. You can ask these questions, whereas, say you weren't at TSD, that's going to cost you. So it's huge to be able to come to attend these sessions and get this perspective. Betsy always talks about different cases, and some, rule in favor of the parent, some rule in favor of the school district. So it's all about breaking down what is feasible. And she really harps on the fact that transportation needs to be in the IEP meeting, and it shouldn't just be, a unilateral decision. She said, watch the just automatic checkbox of curb to curb or door to door service. Because if you're automatically checking that box for every single student, you're putting transportation in a bind, whereas not every student may need that. So really taking time to individualize each student, what they need, what transportation can provide, what they should provide based on this child's needs, not just as a unilateral, we're doing this. And so I think that really resonated with the audience, and lots of questions. I mean, every single one of our keynote, there were so many questions, people going up to the keynotes after asking more information, just really trying to absorb it all and take it home. That's kind of what I saw a lot.
Yeah, we'll dive more into it. We got a quick message.
The RIDE family of vehicles include the award-winning Achiever, Creator, and Dreamer battery electric school buses. The Creator is powered by STN's 2025 Best Green Technology Award winner, the Blade battery. With safety as a central focus, RIDE school buses provide immediate benefits to our communities and our children. Visit ride.co to discover the future of student transportation, or email info.na@ride.co for further product detail.
So Ryan, what was your favorite keynote? Or I guess what were one of the ones standouts that you saw a session you remember? Can't say favorite because, everyone's your favorite, right?
Yeah, of course. I thought Glenna Wright Gallo, the former Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, overseeing the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. She was especially powerful, I thought, and I knew that going in. She's one of the preeminent experts on special education policy and law and regulations. So I was trying to get her. I reached out to her when she was shortly after she was confirmed, and it was interesting. It took her basically almost the entire Biden administration for that whole process, just to kind of give you a peek behind the scenes of what it takes to get confirmed into one of these Senate confirmed roles. But of course, it didn't work out when she was in DC. But now that she's the vice president of policy for Everway, she just had so much to say, so much knowledge to impart on folks. And also, too, in her breakout afterwards, where she looked dear colleague letters, but also just at a lot of aspects of funding as well. And she's working on a big funding piece for Everway. So Everway is a technology company. It's assistive devices for students and people with disabilities. So she's really leading up their policy program, and she's writing this definitive guideline basically on school funding. So of course, I've known she's been working on this for a while now, and there was some hopes there. I was like, is it going to be ready for Reno? And she's like, no. But she told the crowd it looks like probably some point next year. So certainly we'll follow up with that. But just a wealth of information. And she's so passionate about this. She's someone who has disability herself, with her, with like speech and audio, so speech and hearing, something
auditory.
Yeah. So something she's had since a kid that wasn't diagnosed till much later in life. Well, like a lot of our contemporaries, the folks that were born or were raised before IDEA or maybe in the early days. So we've seen how far that law has come in the past 50 years. So definitely Glenna, she celebrated that. But just her breadth of knowledge was what really stood out to me. And I was like, wow, we really need to harness this more for not only TSD, but just STN in general. So great job by her. Going to try to get her out next year. We'll see. But that was probably one of the big standouts for me. Another one, I mentioned Sue Schutrump earlier, and probably about 4 or 5 months ago, she told me that she wanted to do something on sensory needs of students. And I said, sure. What do you want to do? Do you want to do a panel? She said, well, we could do that. And I said, do you want to do a presentation? She said, right, I think I'd like to do a presentation. And that one was really, really fascinating. And I spoke with her afterwards, and she said, I wasn't sure how it was coming across because it was so quiet and no one was asking questions. But it's because everyone was riveted. And Charlie Vitz, who is one of our child passenger safety technicians with the NHTSA 8-hour course, again, formerly with IMI Safeguard, and he was there. He still represents them at this trade show. He was like, he echoed my sentiments and was talking about how fascinating, where she really got in depth into the challenges that many students have with their sensory needs that are atypical, and how the brain processes a lot of this, and gave a lot of backstory on, for example, the difference between light touch and heavy pressure, where light touch on a lot of these students, it just freaks them out and they go crazy. Whereas the deep pressure is what is comforting them. And you think of, okay, well, so many of these kids, how are they riding to and from school on the school bus? They're in their child safety restraint systems, right? Whatever vest or harness they're using, or if they're a much younger child, maybe in a car seat. But Sue talked about, think about a baby being swaddled. A baby calms down because they're being swaddled, and that's that pressure, that confinement, and that actually works in their favor. So she talked a lot about some strategies. Of course, she's a retired supervisor of occupational therapy and physical therapy at Trumbull County ESC in Ohio, and she is now a consultant to the industry. But really fascinating course. So just one of those things that I wasn't initially thinking we were going to do, and it just kind of came about. And boy, I'm really glad we got that one on the agenda.
I want to jump around too and continue with the keynote train. Lisa Navarra, I think, was absolutely incredible when talking about behavior and praise. And it's funny, and those who are in the session are going to laugh, but I'll explain it in a second. But my son this morning, he's one, he was eating Cheerios. And I said, hey, good job eating Cheerios out of the bowl and not on the floor, as, you're making it easier for me to clean them up. And so to explain that a little bit more, she kind of said, it's not about saying good job or great job, right? Fully explain the behavior and the action so that the student can learn what they did was a great job. So if I just said, hey, Zach, great job eating, he doesn't know what he's doing. But saying, hey, great job coming in the school bus, sitting down and buckling up. You kept yourself safe. That's giving that student a tangible action to keep doing. That was good. And she cited research about praising the student's effort versus their intelligence. And, even as a parent, as a spouse, you can take this information back. It's not necessarily for school bus drivers to students or administrators to supervisors to school bus drivers, right? You can take a lot of these lessons back to your own home, your own personal family, and apply a lot of that. And I thought that was really powerful, just the impact of praise and how you can just switch a couple words around, add a couple different lines, and completely change the message that you're trying to say.
And that research that you referred to was interesting, the intelligence versus effort. And it was a controlled test or series of tests that they gave these students. And the ones that they praised for their effort tried harder and did better on the subsequent tests, whereas the ones that they praised for being so smart, they didn't take as many chances and they didn't do as well. So that was an eye-opener. And as a parent, certainly I was sitting there going, wow, my son is 4.5 and he has his behavior issues at times. And how can I approach this differently? And so many times as parents, we sometimes reach that breaking point and we're not perfect and we yell and don't do this and we're punitive. Or when they do something good job. But what is the good job? So that behavior specific praise was really an eye opener as well.
Yeah, I always find these sorts of sessions when you see the audience, how they're reacting, just getting the value out of it, feeling, and Lisa is super full of energy. She's super quirky. She's got that East Coast, she's from Long Island. You hear that New York accent and she just goes a mile a minute. And so it's good hearing it. And our attendees are so funny too. So Lisa had these books that she's put together of kind of her program, and she puts out a table in the front of the room with her tablecloth and all her materials. And she was telling people, oh, I put something on the table, go up front and sit down. Well, what do people do? They run up to her table at the front of the keynote and start taking her things before she's even started. And they were so excited to get in there. She's like, wait, before you take the stuff, I need to teach the class. So they were pumped up to be in the room, and she was handing out books. She said, oh, I brought these books. I could fit in my luggage. I'm not good at selling books. I was like, you know what? We'll just buy the books from you, Lisa, and you just hand them out to attendees as a reward for interacting with you. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. She was so sweet about it. And I was like, don't worry about it. This is an easy thing. We want our attendees to interact with you. We want them to have fun. And Taylor, you've got the power, Taylor.
Oh my gosh.
She literally had Taylor every time someone would give an example of this positive behavior. Taylor would hit the button on the computer. I've got the power, right? And it was like she played it like 10 times. And I was like, oh man, Taylor, it's like in my head now. I think of you and I think like Taylor's got the power.
I did a really great job pressing the button at the right moment.
Well, she took criticism from the audience. She said, "Oh,
I know.
you gotta put it out for Taylor and tell Taylor why she's doing such a good job." And she turned around and was like, "Oh my God, you got me!" Like, I definitely have to do. So Lisa was so funny about it, but it's cool to get every interacting and having that kind of touch, because when you're sitting in an audience and you're just hearing a speaker speak, sometimes you can lose your train of thought, or all your emails are going off or other things. So it's great to kind of bring it back and keep people in the moment so they can take advantage of the content being shared.
Well, not to mention her keynote was after the extremely fun trade show, and she kept the audience there. She kept everyone engaged, because a lot of times, you go to that trade show, you have fun, you're talking with the vendors. The next morning, you're like, hey, do I want to go to that session or do I want to sleep in? But she made sure no one wanted to sleep in.
Well, there's a reason for the madness a lot of times, and when I saw behavior and what's one of the topics that everyone just always asks for at TSD, we want more on behavior. We want more on behavior. So when looking at the agenda, and it's always kind of a puzzle. And I thought, okay, well, I warned her. I said, well, this is going to be Monday morning. It's after the trade show, thinking, okay, well, I think it should still be pretty well attended. And she's like, that's fine. I don't give it to me. So she was really eager. And yeah, I walked in and I was very pleased to see that the room was full. So not surprising.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. All right, we'll dive more into more content in just a second. We're back from STN Expo West, and what a blast the TransFinder team had meeting everybody. They held several classes, had an amazing response to their ride and drive, showcasing their award-winning driver app, Wayfinder. One of the highlights was the top transportation teams panel discussion. The leaders of the 6 winning teams demonstrated just why their teams won. These were thoughtful leaders who listened to their teams, made changes to show how they cared, and yes, even had to make difficult decisions. As TransFinder's CEO Antonio Civitella said, it is so rewarding to honor these men and women who truly do heroic work every day. You can see how much this recognition means to these teams, and that's what makes it all worth the effort. TransFinder started the Top Transportation Teams program in 2023, and it continues to get bigger and better every year. Learn more by visiting toptransportationteams.com to learn more about how your company can join the program. Also visit transfinder.com. So, when we think of the conference, we're always thinking special needs, but there was also this really special moment, and we were all there for it. The Transportation Director of the Year, Kiba Baldwin, you guys probably picked up that November issue. If you haven't, go to stnonline.com and pick it up. Taylor wrote an exquisite article about Prince George's County and Kiba and all the great things that he's done. And he really won this award for his communications abilities. And he has got his hands full with the magnitude and size of his district. It's over 100,000 children, right? That is a big thing. And there's a whole stat sheet of how many buses they're running. It was over 6,000. I think it was 6,100 and change special needs kids transported daily. Huge number. Kiba's superintendent came out, chief of staff from Prince George's County. He had a whole army of people that were there to celebrate him and this award, but also take advantage of all this great content. And this award was so meaningful. And the guy who's the communicator, he was choked up. He's like, I don't get nervous. I was nervous on stage, standing amongst your peers to receive a standing ovation. I mean, the crowd was hooting and hollering. It must have been just so memorable for him, and just really touches your heart to recognize someone that's so passionate about this industry and works so hard, and to recognize him for his abilities and all the great things that he's done. It was really special. And he came up to me afterwards. He said, Tony, you won't believe it. The superintendent put me and the cover of STN magazine out to the entire district. Everyone that works there, my picture in your magazine was there. And I was like, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's always great. I just have such a connection too, because I'm going to these districts and I'm meeting with them and their staff. And so seeing them all come and support him, not a surprise. I mean, that's the district that he is in, Prince George's County. I think he said they have a saying, it's like gorgeous Prince George's. I thought that was cute, but they all show up for each other, and, seeing them in the front row, all clapping, all celebrating him. That's truly what the award is about. And picking those directors, it's a great moment. And so seeing him, truly, truly wonderful.
And in his staff, like you said, Tony, and he brought, his supervisors and his coordinators as well. He had his chief of staff and his superintendent there. But they're very, very excited about the entire experience and wanting more. And they're like, how can we become part of the agenda next year? And so I talked with a couple of their folks, and certainly talked with Kiba. And I told him, hey, look, we're coming out here in 2026. You're the defending transportation director of the year. We're gonna have you out there. We're gonna have you at the conferences. We're gonna have you. And he's like, I'm ready. So it was fun to see, definitely.
Yeah, I talked to another Maryland director who was in that presentation. She was like, we tried to do a lot of the things that Kiba has implemented and nothing has stuck. So she's like, I need to go and get more information on how exactly he's doing these amazing things, because it's clearly working out for his school district. So I think even just there, that networking aspect, like you can meet the transportation director of the year when you go to these conferences, and you can pick their brain on how they're doing certain things, because no one's perfect, but might as well, try to absorb all the information that you can and see if you can implement it back.
Yeah, Bluebird had sponsored the award, and Stephen Whaley, who was up there, he's what's his official title? I think it's like Alternative Fuels Director, and he spoke so eloquently about Kiba and all his accomplishments and the uniqueness and the connection to energy. And, they've invested in electric vehicles, propane vehicles. They definitely are trying their hand at many different technologies. They're very proficient. They're working on what they can do to really elevate the district and the parent experience, improving it for the staff, looking at efficiencies. I mean, he said he had a $75 million budget annually, and I thought that was a pretty beefy budget. I looked at the audience faces when he said that. Everybody was like, oh, wow, that would be really nice to have that much money. But when you put it into perspective of how many students they're transporting, no wonder they need that kind of budget. That's a lot of kids they're moving. Those are special moments that we really have created at the conference. And I mean, you have to think years ago, because the conference is a different date, we weren't ever able to create this opportunity to recognize. And now that the show is in November, we were able to kind of make this happen and tie it together so closely with our Director of the Year front cover in the November issue. It all kind of just worked out perfect, didn't it, Taylor?
Yes, it's great. And I got to see the cover in person. So that was really exciting for me too. It was the first time I get to see it in TSD. So amazing cover, very deserving for him. Just congratulations all around. And I know we'll be picking his brain throughout the year. So stay tuned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we tied off the conferences. I mean, there's so much more, guys. I mean, I'm undershooting it. There's just so much there for us to sink our teeth into. But really, one of the ones that Ryan had been working on that we heard a lot was ASL, right? American Sign Language. And we had engaged the Texas School of the Deaf, and they had 3 signers on stage and 1 interpreter. They were supposed to have 2 interpreters, but I guess they had some fallout. And one of our team members, Linda Grandolfo, was telling me, because she works with children that are hearing impaired, and said, wow, it is a lot of work on that one interpreter to be literally dictating every word.
3 hours.
Yeah, for 3 hours. So they're like, well, we might want to take a few breaks because this is very hard on that person. And there's 3 people signing on stage. So she's trying to read all 3 people and then share with the audience what's being said or signed. So that is a special talent right there.
Yeah, well, the second interpreter, she was stranded. She was coming from New York City, and the government shutdown canceled her flight with the air traffic controller situation. So that's why she wasn't able to come. But certainly there was a ton of folks that had stayed. That's always the challenge. It's that last day. You want to put something on the agenda that's going to keep people engaged, and people are just going to, they're going to have to get back to their district. It's a long time that they're out there at TSD, but we had a lot of people stay, and some people had to go in the middle, and they were just like, "Oh my God, we want to change our flight right now," but we're afraid to. But they just said, "Hey, we're just going to have to budget next year that we're going to have to stay and leave Wednesday." I said, that's a good choice. That's a good way to handle it. So definitely a very interactive. Taylor, I think you sat through almost the whole thing. What stood out to you about it?
So I'm actually going to call you out, Tony, and I apologize. Please don't fire me. But hearing impaired, they actually said is insensitive to the deaf community.
Oh,
because
no.
How insensitive
so sorry.
of you, Tony.
I apologize.
Because the hearing community is kind of making this assumption that you've lost something, that you're impaired, when these people are born deaf, and so they don't know anything other than being deaf. So they prefer just straight up saying the word deaf. Like, I'm deaf. Yeah.
Deaf or hard of hearing. And I believe it's the Texas School for the Deaf, not of the deaf too. So strike two, Tony.
Oh. Guys, you're speeding me up today.
But that really stood out too. And I know that I was talking to Lonnie about it afterwards, and they use hearing impaired as well because it's a medical term. It's in kind of the IEPs, and they use that as more of the medical framework. And so Lonnie was like, I really need to, change my wording as well and make sure that I'm using it correctly. And so I think that really opened up a lot of people to kind of how to approach the situation, because it's hard. You don't know how to help people unless you ask. And they asked that too. They said, if you don't know something, ask, how do you say this? And they will tell you. Deaf people will want to, communicate. They want to tell you how to communicate with them. And something also that was really interesting is they said, never touch a deaf person's hands. And it's the same way as if you would walk up and cover your mouth to someone who's speaking. You touch a deaf person's hands, you're limiting their communication. You're stopping them from being able to communicate. And so I thought that was really powerful, because we all know how rude it is if, Tony was talking and Ryan went up and just covered his mouth, right? Like
Ryan, how could you?
Oh, I could.
So that was really eye-opening. In that perspective. But they also taught a lot of signs, and I saw everyone in the audience. I got video, so we'll post it on social media, but a lot of people trying to learn how to say certain things. And I thought that was really, really awesome. Just working together. How do you say school? How do you say home? Buckle, that one I picked up. That one's pretty easy. But just certain things like that. Everyone was super engaged.
I liked no, where, you can't, those of you who are listening to us can't see it, but you take your index finger and your thumb, and you just basically close them. But if you do it soft, it's like, no. But if you want to really get it across, you slam them together. No. So just think of kind of like the crocodile snapping its jaws shut. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I was trying to pick up a few things, and actually beforehand I was trying to pick up some things. I didn't want to embarrass myself and walk up there and try to start communicating them and like do something really weird or incorrect.
It's like speaking a foreign language, right?
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the language, you don't want to feel like embarrassed that you don't know it. But at the same time, I think that going to a foreign country, you speak a foreign language, they appreciate you making the effort to try to learn them and understand their culture, and they're willing to work with you. So I feel like this is very similar.
Exactly. And they're very, very nice ladies, all of them. So big shout out to, Rochelle Moore. She really spearheaded the whole thing and been communicating, not talking with her, but communicating with her via email. We actually had a phone call with Jennifer Prigge, who is the director of the program down there at Texas School for the Deaf. way back. I think it was like last year at this time or the beginning of the year. So I've been working with Rochella for a long time. And then her two associates there, Ursa Rebolinski and Trudy Zhang. And then Twyla, of course, who was the interpreter, shouted out to her. So she did a great job again, literally being shorthanded and going through that. So Linda made that comment to me as well. What a great job she was doing and how tired and exhausted I'm sure she was at the end. So great job for bringing such great content to our attendees and that sensitivity training. We didn't have a sensitivity training session, but I thought a lot of our sessions had that element. And I heard that over and over again, especially I think it was Sunday, maybe with our agenda. And the different, I think it was Sunday and Saturday. I heard a lot of people say that the overall vibe was so positive, and a lot of it was behavior, but a lot of it was, the sensitivity to these students and for what their conditions are and what they're going through, understanding and trying to be empathetic. And I just heard that over and over again, how happy people were and how positive the sessions were and how positive the feeling was and how positive everybody was walking out of them. So I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for when you do a conference. So got to gear up for 2026. We got STN Expo East coming up here March 26th to the 31st. So that's our next opportunity to meet up with you guys and share our leadership, maintenance, safety, operations. Little different vibe than the TSD conference. But people were like, hey, have you ever thought of doing a TSD conference on the East Coast? Like, we'd love to bring this out there. You never know, guys. I know for 2026, we are going to bring the Transportation Director Summit to the TSD conference to kind of elevate some leadership things. So I guess we have the TSD edition of the TD Summit.
Is that breaking news? News.
Maybe we talked about it pretty openly at the conference, but it isn't maybe out there on the website yet. But yeah, for all you listeners, a hot take headline. So mark your calendars for November of 26 or any STN Expo. We've got our Transportation Director Summit out in Charlotte. We do it at Topgolf in Reno. We actually do it up in Lake Tahoe. Very majestic and beautiful backdrop. So we're looking forward to more of that.
And I want to say, you mentioning that TSD, it's not going to be, or I should say, STN Expo East in Charlotte or Concord, North Carolina is not going to be the same as TSD. But I'll just throw a tickle out there. If you're looking for hands-on information in terms of securing students in child safety restraints or car seats in non-school bus vehicles, then maybe you want to pay attention. So that might be some breaking news. I don't think anything's up on the website, but if you're looking at March 26th to the 31st, STN Expo East, and we see so many people now that are either utilizing these third-party alternative transportation providers, quote unquote, or they're using vans or other non-school bus vehicles in their fleets to transport students, either whether it be with disabilities, out of district / McKinney-Vento, whatnot. There might be something there for you. So stay tuned.
Yeah. All right, guys, we caught up with TSD conference attendees this last week. Check out what they said.
Yes, I'm Sheila McCrary from Sheldon ISD, Houston, Texas. This is Henry Alexandra from Cleveland, Mississippi, and we're learning a lot how the routing and taking care of the special needs children on the wheelchairs and the safety vest and the buses and transportation and how to provide safe and courteous for our children.
Hi, my name is Tracy. I'm from Michigan. We just got the pleasure of riding in the brand new IC. It's beautiful, it's spacious. It was redesigned with driver's input, which is really important. It's very quiet. It's a smooth ride. It's stunning. I love it.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm from Michigan, and I like the safety for the students, having the seatbelts on the bus, the equipment, the width of the walking on the aisles makes it super nice for the kids so that they're not tripping over the seats. It's just super nice.
Hi, I'm Cassidy Miller. I'm a 2024 STN Rising Star. I'm from Washington State, Kashmir School District, and I am so happy to be here at the TSD Conference, getting so much from the additional certifications classes that we've had over the past few days, from the NHTSA Child Passenger Safety course and the AMF Bruins Wheelchair Certification Training course. Those have added so much value to get to go home with a certificate and continue that all we've learned back in our communities.
My name is Shirley Jimerson, and I'm from Dallas, Dallas ISD, work in Dallas High School. And my biggest takeaway is all the wonderful people you get to meet from all over the place, and all the hands-on activities you have in your classes. The people are wonderful. So if you have an opportunity, please go to one of the conferences. They are great.
Well, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work and making it a really great conference for everyone. And we want to thank our sponsors too, everybody that supported, our exhibiting partners. We couldn't do it without them. And we couldn't do it without our sponsors on the podcast either. Transfinder, Ride, and School Radio. We appreciate them. I want to thank you guys. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to Taylor for joining us this episode and sharing your thoughts and experiences at the conference. Always valuable to get some perspectives and eyes and ears on everything happening in the school transportation industry. And guys, these two worked so hard along with the rest of our team to put out fabulous content. Go to stnonline.com for all the latest news and analysis on the school transportation industry and the TSD conference. And you guys can go to stnexpo.com for all the details on the coming conferences next year, STN Expo East and West. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Pause Nation. We have great episodes every week for you. We even have special editions, so go listen to that TSD Conference Special Edition Part 1, Part 2 to hear live interviews directly from the conference. We appreciate you, Nation. We love you. We'll see you next week.